Excellent. You catch him each and every weekend. Cole, what game you working this weekend?
Mississippi as we speak. Vanderbilt at Ole Miss.
Oh man.
Two teams that need to win to find a way to get bowl eligible. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, so it is weird in that those are two bad teams, but they're both kind of right on that bowl bubble when you look at their schedules. So for them, there is a lot on the line this week. We'll start there before this will be like a little appetizer before we get to the real meat. What's your rundown on this Vandy Ole Miss game?
Vanderbilt's got to find a way to play better defense. I mean, they're in the 120s, T-Bob, in almost every major defensive statistical category. It's just not good. And it's hard to imagine they're not able to find more points when you have the trio of Keyshawn Vaughn at tailback, Gerard Pinkney at tight end, and Kalijah Lipscomb at wide receiver. Now, obviously, some quarterback struggles have had a little bit to do with that. And Riley Neal just hasn't been the guy that they thought he was going to be. You know, he's a big physical guy in the pocket. He moves okay, but just hasn't really been able to open things up down the field. And then you got Deuce Wallace on the sideline. He's a little bit more mobile. That you keep kind of wondering, is he going to have to be the guy that can loosen things up and come in? And, Jerry Godowski's a first-year offensive coordinator, so he's sort of trying to figure things out as well. And I'm more intrigued to see defensively how they handle John Rice Plumlee if he's the guy at quarterback and his mobility that he showed against Alabama last week, because he's got legit wheels. I mean, he's not a guy that can just get out of the pocket a little bit. I mean, he was running away from Alabama defenders. So the Ole Miss offense may be a little bit different Saturday night as well.
Well, okay, let's talk about Ole Miss a bit. Cole, what do you make of their year? A year, obviously, when you lose the talent that they did of like almost no expectation, but I feel like they've improved. I feel like they're fighting. Obviously, the Cal's kind of the Cal game's the extreme example of that, but like, I guess where does Matt Luke stand? Where does the current regime at Ole Miss stand? Like, what do you make of their situation?
I think people, if you can just sort of remove your red and blue colored glasses and take the Ole Miss fanaticism out of it, I think you do see a team that's improving and playing better team ball. They're definitely tackling better. That's not even up for debate. They're playing more sound on defense. That's not even questionable. But they just don't have the bodies on that side of the ball to do the things that they really need to do. There are a couple guys like Kadir Shepard who's playing off the ball as a 3-4 outside linebacker that this scheme is a much better fit for. But offensively, you're talking about a team, T-Bob, that just got back to 85 scholarships when fall camp began. Not even over the summer.
Oh, wow.
But when kids reported for fall camp, they actually just got back to having the full allotment of 85 scholarship guys. They brought in 6 offensive linemen, so they're trying to roll some freshmen in and get them some reps. The offensive line's not great, but I have seen a little bit of improvement. And I think they're finding their playmakers week in and week out. Snoop Connor's a guy that's helping them a little bit more. Jerrion Ely, the true freshman tailback that's also going to play baseball here. He's kind of been able to move around and find a few different things. So they're beginning to figure out who they are and what they are. And this John Rice Plumlee thing, I think, makes it really intriguing because now you've got a guy with legitimate wheels at tailback that can force defenses to defend that. They don't have the talent at receiver. They don't have the top-end NFL talent, especially on the offensive line like a Greg Little that they've had over the past few years. But I think they're more sound, and I definitely think they're playing better team ball. I mean, you mentioned they fought in that Cal game, but keep in mind they had to fight, scratch, and claw to win the Arkansas game late too.
Yeah.
And that just kind of showed me that they believe in what they're doing right now.
And you mentioned John Rice Plumlee. I mean, that first few weeks, that offense looked pretty rough with Rich Rodriguez, and it feels like it's gotten a little bit better every week, as you said. I mean, do you think having a guy like John Rice Plumlee kind of opens things up and helps Rodriguez out and maybe a better fit?
Yeah, I think anytime you can force a defense to defend everything, so to speak, you're going to have a chance to make more plays. And the offensive line is not one that's just going to push people around. They're not going to be able to just open up holes. They're going to struggle in protection. So that mobility is going to get them out of a lot of jams. That's going to help them out of a lot of situations in which they might be staring down the barrel of negative plays. So I know they like Matt Corral a lot. I know they believe in his ability as a passer, and he does have pretty good mobility as well. But I'd be very interested to see moving forward sort of how they handle that situation.
All right, Cole. Now, so you're going to be on the call this week, and that's Vanderbilt-Ole Miss. That is at the SEC Network, 7:30 kickoff, the night slot under the lights. But let's get to the meaty one, Cole, the big matchup that all LSU fans are zeroed in on. There might be some LSU fans more excited for this than the LSU game, and that is Auburn at Florida. Fact-finding mission for both teams, and it's really cool. It's the perfect game to break down the trenches. Who has the advantages in that regard?
It's funny. I was scrolling through Twitter before I hopped on with you guys, and I saw an article that was put out by one of these new digital publications that everybody thinks is God's grace to sports media. And the headline was, "Why the Auburn defensive line can be problematic against Florida." Do you remember that old Twitter account that used to be really popular? It was at Saved You a Click, where it would like take headlines and it would basically tell you like in one sentence what the whole story was about.
Yes.
It was like Saved You a Click. So I almost kind of did that, and it was like Auburn defensive line elite, Florida offensive line trash. Like that's why.
Okay, that's great. I can understand that.
Saved you a click there. You don't need to read why the Auburn defensive line can be a problem for Florida, because here's the answer. They're really good. Florida's offensive line's really bad. Florida can't run the football. That's the bottom line. And I think if you look at what Dan Mullen did against Mississippi State last year and going against Simmons and Sweat, Errol Thompson, inside linebacker, he probably knew, hey, we're not going to be able to run between the tackles here. It was heavy on the perimeter, quick throws, quick outlet screens. I think you'll see a similar plan to that. But the problem is, and that State defense last year was good at it too with John Abram, this Auburn team is one of the best tackling football teams that I've seen in 5 or 10 years. I mean, the DBs come up and tackle, the safeties come up and tackle, can play in the box. You have defensive linemen that are tracking screens and quick throws out in the flat and out on the perimeter. The linebackers can play a very physical brand of ball, but they can also run. So I don't know if you can live there, T-Bob. I don't know if you can just turn and spit and turn and throw the ball out really quickly, and that essentially be the offense that you sort of build upon and build around for the 4 quarters of football. And they're not going to run the ball, and I don't know if they're going to have a lot of time in the pocket. Kyle Trask's QBR is a 95.7 when he is not under pressure, and it goes down to a 3.1 when he's under pressure. It's the biggest.
What?
It is the biggest QBR drop off when under pressure as opposed to not under pressure of all college football Power 5 quarterbacks. So I don't know how can play action be effective, number one, when you're not running the ball. Number two, you can't live and die on quick slide protection because you're going to have to try to find something down the field. And by the way, Auburn's DBs cover fairly well too. I mean, go back to that A&M game. You know, they were playing physical on the back end. They were making life difficult for them. The problem for Auburn is on the other side. And a couple people asked me on my show this week. They said, you know, is this D line better than the Texas A&M defensive line? My answer to that was I don't really know if I can say that it is, but I will say that it's definitely different, because while Florida doesn't have a Bobby Brown or a Justin Matabike inside, what they do have out on the edge is unlike anything Auburn has seen. Because I think Jonathan Bernard, Florida defensive end, has to this point been the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. Jabari Zanuga is going to be back in this game. He can scream off the edge and cause some problems. Moon's a guy that comes and helps him off the edge as well. So if Auburn tries to live in 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 9, they're going to lose this football game. Auburn has to be successful on first down, and Adam Stewart's played pretty good ball inside for them, and David Reese is a solid inside linebacker. So can Gus Malzahn continue to be creative and find different ways to run the football and win on 1st and 2nd down? That includes Anthony Schwartz. That includes Shivers out on the perimeter. Obviously, Boobie Whitlow has to be a guy that helps them out. And maybe the biggest key of anything, Auburn running backs got to hold on to the ball. 4 fumbles by Auburn running backs this year. That leads the nation.
Wow.
They put the ball on the ground. There's a good chance they're going to lose this game as well. And I'm not as concerned about how Bo Nix handles the situation. He played at College Station, neutral site game there in Dallas against Oregon. I mean, this kid's temperament was built for this. So
kind of scary. Like from an LSU fan perspective, Cole, like for him to be this young and showing the week-to-week improvement and that especially impressive boxing work against Mississippi State, you start to extrapolate over 3 years, and it's like, oh, boy, like how good could this guy be maybe?
Well, and listen, you know it because you played there. The Swamp's a different place. I will never try to deny that.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, you know, it's everybody always asks me from outside the SEC footprint, where's the most difficult place to play? Where's the loudest place to play? I'm like, listen, it's a 3-team rotational basis. It's LSU, Florida, and Tennessee, and it depends on which one's having the best success right then.
I agree.
Like, if you get LSU at night, it kind of doesn't matter how good they are. But if you get LSU night and they're good, there's really no other place like it. Like I played in Knoxville the year after they won a national championship.
Oh, wow.
Okay? That's the loudest thing I've ever heard in my life. When that dude said it's football time in Tennessee, I've never heard anything like that in my life. Wow. And obviously, you know, you get down to the Swamp, and it's just the Swamp's different, man. It's like it's similar to LSU in that there's no other comp. Like you can't like this the architecture of the stadium.
They're right on top of you, Cole. Like they're right. You can hear the fans talking trash constantly.
Oh, no, I vividly remember when we would come off the sideline, and you guys probably had it like we did, when you're facing the visiting bench, way over to the left is where the offense usually goes.
Yeah.
And the offensive line usually goes to the far end of the bench. And you have essentially a fence and then about a 3-foot walkway, and then that's the student section.
Yes.
And that was actually grandfathered in Gainesville. The SEC does not allow the student section to be behind the player's bench anymore, but because it was grandfathered in Gainesville, there's about a 15-yard overlap where they're right behind you, and they would specifically go down name for name when we would come off the bench. Cubelic, you mother, and Cubelic, you're the worst, you're trash, you're garbage. I mean, obviously a lot more words that aren't radio safe here that I could throw in, but like they would pick out Ben Elliott and Kendall Simmons and Mike Pasillo and Colin Sears and TJ Mears. Like, I mean, individually just go down dude for dude telling us how terrible we were. And
yeah.
Like, this is unbelievable.
A lot of fat shaming in my experience, Cole. A lot of hey, Bear, you fat ass.
We had Rob Pate on our show, played safety for us. He was telling us a story yesterday where they would sit there and watch the D coordinator or the defensive coaches drawing up plays, and they're like, "That ain't gonna work. Don't run that blitz. We're gonna get past that." Like, they're watching what you're drawing up and like telling you about how bad of an idea it was. It's a very different, unique place, and it's obviously could be problematic. But if Auburn can get the run game going, and I do think Bo Nix has the perfect temperament for a freshman quarterback to be able to go there and handle it.
Yeah, and like what a scary team Auburn becomes if they add another big road win to their resume. Cole Cubelic, at Cole Cubelic, host of the 3-man front on WDocs Radio. Also catch him at the Ole Miss Vanderbilt game this weekend. Cole, just give me like a 10-second, like who do you think wins that Auburn Florida game?
I took Auburn to win.
Okay.
I think it's going to be like an old school, ugly, slow, methodical style football game. I think both coaches probably conservative early. Turnovers are going to be a big deciding factor in this game. The defense gets the score. That's probably going to help that team win. But I'm not expecting like a 35-31 shootout or anything like that. This is going to be kind of an SEC throwback style game, in my opinion. Defense, turnovers, field position, penalties. I think those are the things that decide this game.
There you go, Cole Cubelic. Catch him this weekend. Thank you so much, Cole. Have a great one.